Everybody, welcome in. Happy Saturday to all of you. I'm so happy to see so many familiar faces and so many new faces as well. So welcome in. Thanks for joining me. My name is Sarah Lovecraft. I'm a designer for Beadalon. And some of you may not know this, but not only am I a designer in the industry, but I also run my own small business. And though that doesn't necessarily make me an expert per se, I do have some little insider tips and tricks that might help you if you are looking to maybe refresh your website or your craft booth, or maybe that's what your New Year's resolution is, because we're still in January. Things are still sparkly and shiny and new, right? And venturing into your jewelry business may be something that you are considering for the new year. Now, these are a lot of things that are going to kind of seem like common sense, but I think sometimes get tossed out the window when we get bombarded with all of the things that come along with starting your own business. Now, whether you're doing this just as like a side hustle, or if you want to make this your full-time job, a lot of times the small little things that get forgotten are really kind of the most important. So today we're going to focus on what I call filler jewelry, and we're going to put together a really simple bracelet project while we are talking about a lot of these things. But I do want to kind of tell you what it is that we will be talking about and some of the things that I won't be talking about, because there are just as many questions that are not going to get answered as the ones that are going to get answered, and a very good reason why. So we're going to be talking about building your inventory for whether it's your website or your booth. I really am going to kind of focus a lot on the craft booth itself and the setup of it, just because that's more of a physical thing that I can really kind of just like draw you a really a stick person picture, if you will, of what that can look like, just an example of that. Whereas building a website is a little bit different. Obviously, this is not a brick and mortar kind of setup. It's not a booth setup. So the tips and tricks for that are a little bit different. And depending on if you're using software, if you're doing it from scratch, there are a lot of things that go into that. I can't really talk a whole lot about that just because I use Etsy or other sites that are kind of pre-made for you. So you don't get a whole lot of options with those, but I will be talking about setting up a booth. And I also want to talk about how to set up your collection of jewelry in the most cost-effective and time-effective way to do that, and the best use of your materials, how to maximize your spending. And Michael's is so good for helping with that. And so I've got a lot of products to kind of mention here and there, along with tools and things like that that you're going to need. But one thing that I won't be talking about, and this is probably the number one question that I get asked the most about business, and I just want to be really upfront at the very beginning and let you know that I'm not going to be answering this question. And that question is about pricing. And though I know that's the number one question everybody asks, I tend to shy away from that question for a lot of reasons. But the biggest reason is because pricing actually could take up an entire hour all on its own. There are a lot of things that go into pricing jewelry, and it's not a one size fits all conversation, really. It really kind of comes down to you, your talents, your skills, your materials. There's a whole lot that goes into pricing. So I'm not going to answer any of those questions. I apologize if that was what you were hoping to ask in advance. I really want to stay more towards building your inventory and the physical things that we can affect, right? So I'm going to go ahead and turn you guys around. Like I said, we're going to chat as we put together a really easy bracelet. Now, this bracelet is a really good example of what I call filler jewelry, and I'm going to explain what that means. So let's get you guys turned around onto the mat, and let's talk about some of the things that I consider to be essentials. Okay, so I'm not going to get really into wire and all of that stuff so much as we're going to talk about beads and findings, components, and things like that. Okay, because those are really kind of the stepping stones of what's going to build your inventory for whether it's your website or if it's your booth or whatever your situation might be, right? Well, filler jewelry, so let's start there. Filler jewelry to me is kind of the backbone, just like I just mentioned, of your inventory. Filler jewelry is beautiful pieces, right, that are easy to construct, eye-catching, cost-effective for you and affordable for your customer, and kind of fill up the space in between your statement pieces, right? So filler jewelry, right? If you're taking notes, I don't know if you are or not, but just in case you are, filler jewelry, cost effective, time effective, doesn't use a lot of materials, and the materials that it does use are ones that are cost effective. Okay, so this bracelet that we're going to put together, great example of that. So let's talk about kind of the breakdown of this bracelet. So the bracelet that we're going to be putting together has 2 pieces of chain. And chain is one of those things that is a staple for your inventory, not as far as your finished pieces are concerned, but as far as like your materials are concerned. And so I like to buy my chain. I get mine from Michael's, of course, but I like to buy it in bulk. And Michael's makes it really easy. You don't really feel like you're buying in bulk. It's not like going to one of the big bulk shops. They just give you a lot. And that's really a good thing, because looking at all of this chain and considering that maybe you only use 8 inches of chain for a project, just think about how many different projects you can get out of this much chain. And this was just a single buy, right? So when you're thinking about things that you always want to have on hand, things like chain, wire, bead stringing wire, jump rings, clasps, those kinds of things, you want to look at the most cost-effective way to buy those things. And that's going to be, don't buy one project at a time, right? You want to buy thinking about future projects. This could probably make, I would say, upwards of 10, 12, maybe even more of this style bracelet with just one card of the chain that I got from Michael's. The same is going to be true for other things as well. So let's look at the charms, for example, because we're going to be using a charm in our design, and we're only going to be using one charm, right? Just one little charm, but I've got a card of charms here where there were actually 12, and they're all in different colors, which is going to equal 12 full designs, depending on how it is that you're going to incorporate these. So usually when I'm looking for things, I'm looking to buy things in a bulk sense and more of a thinking ahead to the future sense than I am buying one design at a time, right? And that's really going to be key with filler jewelry, because your filler jewelry is really going to be one of those things where, like this bracelet, for instance, let's say you don't want to do it all in blue, but you do want in every single color. Now you've got a collection of these bracelets, and these bracelets don't take a lot of materials, but they are going to take up a physical amount of space in your booth, or a physical amount of space on your website, right? Still beautiful. They have their own, they have their own draw, but they're going to be the pieces that are going to be the most cost-effective, time-effective, that are going to be between your big statement pieces, where you're probably going to design based not on bulk, but on design at a time. Does that make any sense? I really hope it does. I really hope it does, because there are definitely 2 different kinds of designs when it comes to your website and to your booth. So we're talking about designs one at a time and filler designs, right? So again, I can get 12 bracelets out of this, or 12 necklaces or whatever. It's also a really handy thing to have if you like to do personalized jewelry for customers. Let's say you have this style of bracelet, this filler jewelry, if you will, and it is in your booth. And you only have it in the blue, but you offer to your customers, but I can personalize this, I can do your favorite color. Well, then you've got these kind of in your back pocket, so to speak, where you can pull these out and say, I've got pink, I've got orange, I have blue, what color would you like? And then it makes the customer kind of feel like you're customizing a piece, when really you planned ahead for that kind of situation, right? So charms, components, things like that. Pendants, always a good buy when you can buy several of them on one card. And again, Michael's is perfect for that. So another big one, and I talk about this one very, very often, when I do these classes, because this is probably one of my very favorite things that Michaels offers. And that is the hanging cards that have the faceted beads, or maybe they're not faceted. I've got some that are not faceted, just these beautiful beads here that are more than one size on a card, right? How efficient is this? So not only is there a ton of beads here, but I have the choices of all of the different sizes, and I can get a ton of designs out of this. When you consider that filler jewelry is only going to use a minimal amount of materials, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 beads. If I were using the glass faceted beads here and I only used 8 of them, just think of what's left over, right? How many more designs I can create with these. And having the different sizes is another way to further personalize the jewelry based on your customer if they ask for such a thing, right? Let's say, for instance, this bracelet was made in the smallest of all of these beads. The customer comes to you and says, I really love that, but can you make this in a larger bead? Well, then yeah, you've planned ahead. You've got all of these beads at your fingertips. They're in your back pocket, so to speak, and you're already ready, right? Not only that, but these cards are a great way to build up your stash. We talk about your stash a whole lot when we're talking about beading. And I know that if you're into jewelry making, most of us have kind of an excessive amount of beads, if you will. This is a great way to kind of feed that beading addiction. You got to have more. But really, when you're talking about your business, I mean, you can justify that. Yes, I want more beads because I love beads, but also this is a great cost-effective way to purchase. And again, they come in more than just the facets. You can get these beautiful round beads as well. There are a ton of these to choose from at Michaels. So it makes it really easy if you're building up your stock, right? Or your stash to make your filler pieces or your statement pieces. You don't have to buy a whole lot of things. A couple of cards of these beads, and you've got enough to make, I don't know, 20 or more designs, just kind of depending on how you use your materials. One other thing that I like to mention is these are some of my favorites. I don't think I ever talk about these in projects, but this is one of those products that I can't live without. I have to have these metal beads, and I have a tendency to buy these in bulk when I get them from Michaels. And a lot of times I do my Michaels shopping online. These are the perfect spacer bead. They're just simple silver beads, right? And they're tiny, but the cool thing about them is that they come in a lot of different sizes, and I'll just buy them in bulk, and I always just dump them into a container. I was actually using this container before our class, where I just go to grab them because they're the perfect little filler. And filler is important when you're trying to maximize your beady goodness, right? You can see in this design, I have these little beads. They're taking up space, which is space that I don't have to fill with my special beads, right? Or my colored beads, or whatever the case may be. So I definitely recommend stocking up on spacer beads. I think these are fantastic. They're simple. They don't detract from the design, and a lot of times can offer length so that you can maximize your colored beads. All right. So one other thing I do want to mention before we get started with our design is findings. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about tools or anything like that, but findings is definitely one of the things that you got to have a lot of, and you tend to go through really, really quickly and you don't even realize it, right? And so one of my favorite ways to have findings on hand is to grab these, the assortment packs. I love this one because it's got a bunch of different jump rings and a bunch of different sizes. I have the spring ring clasps. There are also the little lobster clasps, and they're just handy to throw in your bag. If you're going to be doing craft booths, craft fairs, things like that, you want to be sure that you have something like this on hand. This is not just good for your regular stash, but if you happen to be doing a booth or being somewhere where you're showing your jewelry to people in person, just complete transparency. Sometimes accidents happen, right? Sometimes you've got a piece of jewelry that breaks. Maybe it was an oversight on your part. Maybe you just didn't get that jump ring closed tight enough, or accidents happen, and it's better to always be prepared. So not only do I have these on hand for my designs that I'm working on at home, but I can throw this in my bag, take it with me, and then if there is some sort of jewelry emergency during the craft event, I've got these on hand, and that's, you know, that can be a make or break for the day. All right, so let's talk filler jewelry. And the filler jewelry like we have here, and I've mentioned this a bunch, but I can't say it enough, is going to be beautiful pieces, right, that are going to appeal to various price ranges. Now, filler jewelry for some people is going to be a little bit different than filler jewelry for other people. You always have to take into consideration your clientele, right? If you're dealing with, you know, your mid-range clientele, you want to have your expensive pieces like your statement pieces with maybe your gemstone beads and things that are priced a little bit higher, but then you want to have a draw in and your filler jewelry to be kind of the fluff, but not fluff in a bad sense. The fluff is really going to be all of the purchases that are going to get you to having somebody make that statement piece purchase, right? You want to maximize your materials as much as you possibly can but still offering a beautiful, trendy piece of jewelry. And something simple like this makes a great gift. It makes, you know, a great piece that somebody might just buy just to splurge on themselves, but then they're going to remember to come back to you for those statement pieces, right? And a lot of times with filler jewelry, I like to do something just a little bit different with them to keep them from being just kind of the run-of-the-mill bracelet, right? So for instance, this one, I've got all my beads going here in the front. We're going to do that in just a second. I have my chain on the back, and instead of putting my clasp in the middle, just the simple movement of the clasp to the side instead of back here in the back centered up makes this a little bit different than maybe some of the other bracelets that they're going to be seeing at the craft fairs, right? Because you're going to have competition there. That little adjustment can be the difference between them shopping with you and somebody else. And it's just a small little detail, but it can make a huge, huge difference. So let's go ahead and start putting this piece together, and I'll show you just how easy it is to put this together. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. So we're going to start out with one piece of 24 gauge wire. Okay, we are going to use only about 5 inches of that. So that's not a whole lot of our wire material. And we're going to start out by making a wrapped loop on one end. So I'm going to come down on the end of the wire with my chain nose pliers about 1 inch or so. And I'm going to bend the wire, just making myself a 7, backward 7, depending on how you're holding it, right? And then I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers, and I'm going to take that wire up and over the top barrel of the pliers. And now to close up that loop, I've got to take that bottom barrel of the pliers and move it out of the way because I can't get that wire all the way over. So I'm just going to rotate the pliers in my hand, essentially taking that bottom barrel and making it the top barrel. We're going to guide the wire over. That's going to close up our loop. And I'm going to wire wrap underneath that loop. 3 or 4 wire wraps will do. And then I'm going to come in with my cutter tool and I'm going to trim off the excess wire. Okay. All right. So now we're going to put together our bracelet. Now, the one for the sample was in blue. For the class, I'm going to use this different color, but they're the exact same beads. They're these beautiful Czech glass beads. They're from Bead Gallery, and you get 2 strands of these. And I find that they last a really long time. So this is another great, what I would consider a bulk buy, because we all know that Czech glass beads can be pricey. So getting 2 full strands of Czech glass beads, that's pretty darn good, I'm just saying. And when you consider that your design only uses 8 of those, then you've got plenty left over for more designs. Okay, so I'm going to start out with these round beads that we talked about. Okay, and I'm going to thread on one of the silver beads. I'm going to thread on a Czech glass, the silver bead. So I'm just alternating here. And just for fun, we'll take a look here in just a second. I want to do a little measurement just to see exactly how much space these filler beads are saving me. The silver beads, right? I want to see how much space they're actually saving me. That is saving me Czech glass beads. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. So the next bead on is going to be a silver bead. Okay. And then we're going to put a charm on this. I'm going to grab one of the charms that we were looking at. I'm going to use this kind of honey colored one here. It might not match exactly, but it's pretty close. Snip that right off of the card. It's already on a jump ring, which is super convenient. Means that I don't have to use one of my own jump rings, right? Or you can, it's up to you, right? I kind of do want to use a bigger jump ring. So I think I'm going to go to my Findings Variety Pack here. I'm going to grab a bigger jump ring and I'm just going to replace it. Now, does that mean I'm going to throw the one away that's on this charm? Absolutely not, because that's still a good jump ring. It's still going to get used, right, at some point. So I'll just remove this one just because it's a little on the small side. I'm going to make sure that I close it back. And I'm going to toss that over here with the rest of the jump rings. And I'm just going to use a bigger jump ring. And that's just a design choice, right? But anytime you take hardware off of something, save it. Save it. It's going to save you money in the long run. All right, so I've got a bead. I'm going to thread on my charm. And then I'm just going to repeat the pattern. So grab a few more of these. Now that bigger jump ring is going to allow that butterfly charm to kind of move around over the top of those, right? And that's fine. That's fine with me. So again, we're just using 8, right? We're just using 8 of our Czech glass beads, which means I have tons left over and I still have a really beautiful design. So now we're just going to do a wrapped loop. The piece of wire was a little short, so my wrapped loop is going to be, I might not have enough to do all my wraps here. We'll make it work. All right, so we're just going to do the wraps to finish this off, just like we did at the beginning. Again, I'm just working with a really tiny little piece of wire here. All right, now just for fun, okay, just for fun and just kind of to prove my point, I'm going to sit this right here, right? And let's take a look at what we have here. So we only used 8 of our Czech glass beads, right? And that's a money saver. We used one of the charms. We still have 11 charms left. And we used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of our little silver beads. So just for fun, let's lay out 10 of these silver beads so that I can show you just how that makes a huge difference, right? In space, because again, we're trying to maximize our materials. So this is a good kind of visual representation. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here's one more. So there is 10 of the silver beads, right? 10 silver beads is going to be the equivalent of pretty close to 4 of our Czech glass beads, right? That's half of a whole other bracelet. And I know that that seems kind of silly and like, okay, that's common sense. But the truth is that when you look at it like that, you realize how many of your more expensive beads you saved, right, for another design when you added the more or the less expensive filler beads in between here that you can get a ton of, right? But you haven't taken away the beauty of the design. You don't have to use every single one of your Czech glass beads that you buy on one design. Make those stretch as much as possible, right? So yeah, I see some of you in the comments were saying that's a good visual. It is, because sometimes we need that little bit of a reminder. The beauty of the beads is still here. This is still a gorgeous piece of jewelry. But we just saved ourselves 4 Czech glass beads by using the more inexpensive beads in between there. That's half of another bracelet, right? I mean, that's huge when you're trying to use your budget. You know, when you're building your inventory, you want to get as much bang for your buck as you possibly can. So it's just a good little visual representation there. All right, let's finish our design here, and then we'll hit a couple more high points on just a couple more talking points that I want to touch on before we go, right? Just some other little simple things. Okay, so our core of this design was wire, right? So that means that I can very easily kind of coax this wire into the rounded shape that is going to make our bracelet round and more comfortable to wear than a straight bar of beads. Right? And we didn't use a lot of that wire, so I have a ton of that left over. And now we just need some chain for this. So half of our bracelet is the beads. The chain kind of works in the same way that our little metal beads do, right? The beads are still in the front. They're still shown off. They're still beautiful. But instead of using an entire strand of our Czech glass beads, which can be a little bit more expensive than our chain, right? We're going to use the chain as the length. So we still have beautiful beads. We still have beautiful sparkle. But again, this amount of chain is going to save this amount of beads, right? Just cost effective, but still beautiful. All right, so I'm going to grab some jump rings from my Findings Variety pack here. So there's one, and there's another one. Okay, so for your chain, you're just going to use 2 pieces. I cut my pieces about 4.5 inches long. You can adjust that accordingly to whatever you need for your bracelet. I'm going to use a single jump ring, and I'm going to thread on the end of one of my chains, and I'm going to thread on the end of the other chain. Okay, and then I'm just going to attach that to our wrapped loop on one end of our little beaded section, and I'm going to close that back. Okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing over here to the other side. But before we close this jump ring, I'm going to thread on our clasp, right? So thread on one end of the chain and thread on the other end. We're going to attach our lobster clasp to this. We're going to close this back. And we're going to add one more jump ring here, and that's it for the bracelet. So the bracelet is really simple. The design is simple, but the design is beautiful. You're still showing off some great beads. You're showing off your skills and your talents. You know, you're making the most of your budget with your beads and materials. And you've got a design that you can easily create several of these, right, in a short amount of time with a minimum amount of materials, but they're still going to appeal to a lot of your customers. And that's really what you're looking to do, right? You want to be sure that you're kind of covering all your bases with your customers, because you're going to have a large, array, if you will, of price ranges that your customers are going to be looking for. And this is going to be a good mid-range piece of jewelry that's still just beautiful, right? And I always say this, a beautiful piece of jewelry does not have to be a representation of every single skill that you've ever learned, right? Sometimes keeping it simple is where it's at. It also doesn't have to be a display of every bead that you own either, particularly when you're trying to be cost effective. Okay, so if you were putting together a craft booth, right, where would you put these? That's a question that I think we need to address. I'm gonna just kind of scoot these over for a second. I'm gonna bring in a piece of paper. I'm gonna draw the world's worst picture, but I think it's gonna kind of help you to understand how to set up a booth in a way that's really going to draw people in. Now, the reason that I can share this with you is because I've done this before. Okay, I've done this, and I've tried several different. I've tried several different booth setups, and this just happens to be the one that works for me the best. Now, again, this is not going to apply to a website, but you're still going to use kind of the same sense of this in your website design. We'll talk about that in just a second, but let's just for a second talk about most craft spaces in craft fairs or whatever. They give you a square or a rectangle shaped space to put your stuff, right? So my very favorite setup for this is, and again, I'm not a good drawer. I make jewelry. I don't draw. Okay. But I'm going to put a table here. I like the U shape. I'm going to put a table here, and I'm going to put a table here. Now, if I've got extra stuff, I might put a few things here in the middle. But depending on your space, you might want to avoid that altogether. If you're working in a really small area here, you may want to avoid all of that. Now, you want to put yourself either right here, this is me, or here or here. It's really not going to make much of a difference, but you want to be back here in the back, okay? This is going to be the entrance to your booth, right? This is where you want to put a statement piece, okay? That's going to catch everybody's eye. You want to put one of those right here on the end, and over here on the other end, you might think, okay, well, I need two statement pieces on the end. That's not really what you want to do. What you want to do is you want to put a statement piece here, but you want to put a beautiful filler here. So let's say you've got a whole little bracelet bar of these bracelets. This is a really good place for this, right? The reason this works is because it doesn't matter which direction your customers are flowing, okay? If your customers are going this direction, let's just pretend they're going this way, okay? They're gonna see first, they're gonna see the statement piece, and they're gonna say, oh, that's beautiful. But maybe it didn't entice them to come all the way in. They walk a couple more feet over, they're like, but it's kind of pricey, and they see some of your filler designs here. And the filler designs are more in their price range. They're beautiful, they catch their eye, and boom, you've got them in, right? Same thing works the other direction. Okay, so if they're coming this way and they're coming from the other side, they see the filler jewelry and they're like, oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that, but it's still not enough to bring them inside. Then boom, you hit them with a statement piece and they're like, I'm on my way inside, right? You got to bring them all the way into the booth. I know a lot of times people will want to position themselves out here on the edges, right? They want to sit on a stool or stand right at the outside edge of the booth. Don't do that, because what happens is you're stopping them from coming inside. Maybe you talk to them and maybe the customer doesn't want to be talked to, right? Not everybody wants to be talked to. I feel like a lot of times people think that they need to interact in order to get people in the booth. No. Bring them to you. You want to entice the customer to come to you. Okay. So don't put yourself out here, because you're automatically blocking them from coming in. You want to bring them in. So as you bring them in, you want your statement pieces to be set up a little bit higher, right? Because they can all live together. You want your statement pieces maybe on a riser where they're seen, but then you want all of your beautiful filler jewelry, and these are going to be your money makers. These bracelets right here, these are your money makers, guys. And that's the best part, because they don't use a whole lot of materials, but they are the money maker. This is the bread and butter. This is going to be where you're going to re-get the cost that you made for the booth, right? This is going to be the cost. This is going to make you the cost back that you spent on the materials. You're going to sell more of your filler pieces than you are your statement pieces. So your bread and butter is right here in this really simple design that we put together. Now, whether it's a bracelet or it's earrings or whatever, it really doesn't make any difference, but that's what's going to be where you're going to make the majority of your money, right? And that's where you want to be the most effective with your time and your money. So then on this back wall where you are, this back table, there's a couple of different ways you can set up your back table, but you have to kind of think like you would if you were a grocery store, right? And there is something to be said for impulse buys. And I'm guilty of an impulse buy. I know lots of people are. If they didn't work, then there wouldn't be such a thing. Your impulse buy is going to be the last minute, probably the lowest priced things that you have in your entire collection. So let's say you have some lower priced earrings. Let's say you have maybe stretch bracelets or whatever it is. Your impulse buys need to go right in here. But you also want to put one of your very favorite statement pieces right next to you, because this is an opportunity. Don't miss this opportunity to have a conversation with your customer. Put a statement piece right here with your impulse buys that is going to have those customers ask you a question, or they're going to say something. They're going to say, oh, that's beautiful. And then you can take that as an opportunity to open the door to a conversation, right? Oh, do you like these? Well, over here are the bracelets that match in my filler jewelry. Or, oh, you really like this? You know, I do custom designs. This is an opportunity to have a conversation. Maybe you don't sell this statement piece. That's okay. But this is your conversation piece. Big deal. Big deal. Okay. So that's just a little booth setup. Like I said, it's a very rudimentary drawing, but I feel like this is really kind of the key to making your money. You want your impulse buys back here with a statement piece that's going to have conversation. You want your filler, right? That everybody can afford, that everybody likes to ooh and ah over. These are going to be your pieces that are trendy, right? Whereas your statement pieces are going to be classics. Right. And again, you want one on one end and one on the other to catch them either direction. Right. Okay. So last but not least, to talk about this, I'm going to turn you guys around. Okay. Just because you don't want to look at this anymore. Right. You can look at me for a second. Well, we talk about the website, because the website's a little bit different. Obviously, you're going to need to rethink things with your website, but websites, a lot of the ones that people use, particularly in the beginning, are going to be things like Etsy, where it's the storefront is really set up for you. If you're using like, you know, another, you just kind of drag and drop kind of website setup, those are perfect because they already have everything set up for you. And Etsy is the one that I use the most, so that I can really kind of speak to that one for just a second. So your statement pieces are going to be your featured designs. So Etsy has a, one of the parts of their setup for their shop is you have an opportunity to put your featured designs. And I feel like a lot of times people want to put all their statement pieces in their featured designs. You don't want to do that. You kind of want to work it the same way you would your craft booth, right? Or your main page, right? If you've got your own website and it's not Etsy, you've got your opening page. You want to treat your opening page the same way you would your featured designs on Etsy. You want to mix in a good array of everything. You want a couple of really good statement pieces that are going to catch your eye, but you want to be sure that in your feature designs or in your front page of your website, not only do you have your statement pieces, but you've got some of that beautiful filler jewelry, right? That's what's going to really kind of appeal to everybody. That's going to be where you're going to get more people in. It's different with a website because you don't have the opportunity to, you know, get them coming and going. So you kind of have to put everything all in one place, but don't fill up your main page or your features with just your statement pieces, or you're going to limit the customer reach, right? Because maybe that $50 necklace is only going to appeal to a certain amount of people, and the people who are only looking to spend $20 are not going to come in and take a look at the rest of your website. The same is true with your booth. So yeah. I feel like I've given you guys a lot of information, but it's really just kind of scratching the surface. I mean, we really could like deep dive on all of these things. There are marketing tricks. There are things about placing certain colors in certain places and groupings of 3 instead of groupings of 4. There are things about, you know, putting things using a height setup instead of like a, you know, a lengthy setup, virtual or not virtual, vertical versus horizontal, right? And all of those things are things that you can continue to research, right? I've just kind of given you like the basics, and you can very easily look to see, you know, what else is out there. But I think probably the biggest thing is you just want to be sure that you're maximizing your materials, right? And this project was a great example. It's simple, but it's beautiful. It's going to appeal to a wide array of customers. And it's maybe it's not necessarily a trending piece, but it's considered a stable piece that has a long shelf life. It's going to stack well with other designs. It looks beautiful all by itself, makes a great gift. So that's what your filler needs to be: cost effective, time effective, right? And just beautiful. Because at the end of the day, that's where your money makers are going to be, right? All right, you guys, that's it for me. I hope that I've given you some information. I feel like we're all over the place a little bit, but it's a lot of information to condense down into just one small, you know, class. But it is a good jumping off point, you know, and I hope that I've given you some tips that maybe you hadn't thought about before. If nothing else, just the visual representation of those silver beads and how many Czech glass beads that that makes up for, I think, is a good one to think about going forward in the future when you're building your inventory for your craft booths or your website. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the project. And like I said, I hope I've helped you kind of get started with building your business or your website, or maybe just doing a little refresher, right? And I will be back with you guys soon with another fun class, another great project. I look forward to it. I will see you guys again soon. Bye, guys.